Check out the Rugby Rant podcast show.
And welcome back to episode 242 of the Rugby Rant. I'm the big guy, Scott Farrar. That's Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt.
Yo.
And yes, I'm back on the episode. Yes, I'm not leaving them hanging today. Yes, my kids went to bed on time without sickness, and my wife was okay. Everything worked out for me to show up on the show today.
The stars were aligned.
Yeah, as everybody knows, the past 2 years have been a struggle for me to come on here every week with my children and everything that's going on. So I'm back. And joining us today, actually, it's funny. I think he has to be like the 100th MLR player we have. I mean, we've had so many MLR players on here.
Oh, God, yeah.
Insane. But Nick Johnson, former MLR player playing with the Colorado Raptors and Austin Gilgronis. He played for Santa Clara University, and he is currently the rugby business development for Inspire Global Sports, or Sports Global, excuse me, which is a destination sports logistics business out of the UK. What he's trying to do is he's trying to work with college, high school, youth, old boys, men's, trying to get some of these sides to go on tour. They set up all the logistics for you. I just heard some wonderful stories between Nick and Rob about the work they do, and I'm jealous that I can't do any of that crap anymore. Unfortunately, never got to go on tour, but Rob did back in like 1952 or whatever. He was like 40. So I hear all that, that's all I ever hear. We went to Spain and Jenny, and I heard that story 50,000 times. But you can now do that too with the help of Nick Johnson. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I mean, it's touring is awesome. It's the main reason I got into rugby. Like most American kids here, I played multiple other sports. And first time I went on a rugby tour really sold it for me. I came back. I kind of decided like I love the sport. I love the culture. I love everything that it's based around. And I want to focus on the game. And that was kind of what jump-started my rugby career. And so just the ability to potentially be able to give that to kids around the States, I really do think that it's such an amazing game. And when kids can really see it for what it is and how, passionate it's taken around the world, I think kids will start jumping across to rugby at very high levels and trying to make it, not their second or third sport, but what they want to focus on. So anything we can do to contribute to that and to contribute to coaching education opportunities and, any resource we can really give is kind of what the goal is. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on and looking forward to this.
Yeah. I mean, we all know that rugby, everybody that has played or been involved in rugby at any level knows that it has its own unique culture. And that's what I don't think we sell enough about our game is the culture that's produced by rugby that's unique and different from anything else that American sports have to offer, whether it's the post-match meal, the man of the match afterwards, awarding somebody from the other team, and then the tour. And the tour is something that no other American sport, save hockey and they do some soccer obviously, but not the true going to another country tour. That's something Americans haven't really gotten yet.
Yeah, it's just different. I had a group out of the Virginia kind of DC area that went to Scotland about a year ago, and I'll never forget. I went on the tour with them, and we were at clubhouse of one of the hosted facilities. Boys had just eaten. Some songs started to go, and about 15 minutes into it, we had all 40 players from this Virginia group and about 25 to 30 players of this Scottish kind of local club, arm in arm, singing a song together. And there was a dad in the back of the room that I was standing next to, like in tears. And he literally said, "This is the coolest thing I've ever experienced." And he wasn't a rugby guy. His son was getting into it. And just hearing that message, you're like, that's why we do it. That's why people go on tour. It's what makes this game so special, as you just said.
That's how you grow the game, baby. I love it. Love it. Scott, let's just talk briefly about our partners before we kick off the episode. So we want to first of all thanks Macron. You can get your Rugby Rant merch, same as the boys in the MLR wear. It's the same stuff, same gear, and it's significantly less cost. Why? Because we're not charging you to put our logo on it. We're passing along that savings to you so you can get some high quality gear. I'd like to thank Tim Brown and Macron for doing what they do. He was awesome. We got a chance to meet him in person. He is a large man, by the way. Got a chance to meet him in person. And I want to thank Macron and for all the support they've given us over the last 2 seasons. And then, of course, our other one is you want to put it up there, Scott. We have got Rugby Now. So Rugby Now, they're out of Nevada. Great organization to buy kit that you need. And we're talking about, boots, everything that you need, shorts, jerseys, anything you need. The beauty of Rugby Now is you get $200 sale and you get free shipping. And that shipping happens. Oh boy. That shipping, there we go. That shipping happens. If you order by 5 p.m. Eastern, you get it it ships that day, and you get it within 2 to 3 days. I'm telling you, lightning fast. So if you need boots in, post haste for that sevens tournament coming up, I know there are a lot of tournaments in the build up to Nats in Madison. Get your boots from them. And they, by the way, have the new Adidas women's boot in stock. So there's some awesome stuff. Use code RANT15 to get a discount courtesy of the Rugby Rant.
Yeah. And that's me putting the fucking overlay in the wrong place. Anyway, guys, let's get back to actual. Yeah, I'm out of practice. Actual rugby. And now we're going to hit you with Around the Pitch. Hammer, start us off, buddy.
Yeah, I just want to throw a big shout out. I always like talking about youth rugby programming. We've always said in the Rugby Rant, to grow rugby, we've got to start at the grassroots. We've got to grow the game and grow players that turn out and become fans. My shout out goes to Ridge Rugby Academy. The Cowdreys, Ashley Cowdrey's parents, have been awesome servants of the game, and they continue to do so up there in Sparta, Michigan, which is about 20 miles north of Grand Rapids. They just started Ridge Rugby Academy literally this spring, and their aim or mission is to grow rugby through respect, teamwork, and passion. They have elementary through high school levels, girls and boys, and just a shout out to them because their high school girls got second in the Dutch Sevens this last weekend on July 11th. So great stuff. And another shout out to the Cowdreys themselves because their daughter Ashley not only played on the HSBC Sevens circuit for the women's team, but she was recently got her first and second caps against South Africa, playing at the 15 spot. So congratulations to her, the national champion in sevens with the Chicago Lions, an MVP of the tournament, amazing athlete, and amazing parents who do tireless work for rugby.
Love it. Love it. Always love talking youth rugby. Love the stories. Love that we get to meet people and follow their children and follow them along this journey and kind of have a little bit more of a personal connection with it, Rob. We love that. So, Nick, what do you got to talk about?
A few things, kind of touching on that high school theme. Couple tours we have coming up with some high school areas that are really cool. In particular, just because it's both groups are kids that don't get to travel a ton. Kids that have grown up playing different sports and kind of have got into some really, really good grassroots clubs. One of them is Hawaiian Gardens out in California, is going to be looking to go to Wales. And then the other one is a Chicago team with that will be looking to go to Portugal Sevens next year as part of their inner city youth team. So 2 really cool opportunities for those kids to, again, kind of see the game at its finest, the culture at its finest. And then one other kind of big thing for me personally is the Denver Selects program that I've been a part of for a few years, just won a Rugby Town with in 2024. They kind of switched over. Ethan Punier is going to be the new director there. And forever that club, super prestigious. They've won the most Rugby Town titles. They've produced a bunch of, played with a bunch of USA Sevens players. But kind of the future of that program is not only going to be Rugby Town as it's been, but they're looking to do a U25 kind of feeder pathway program. They're going to try and play, in a bunch of different events around the country. And again, just another really good organization that's, been run very, very well since it started and now has kind of switched over to really great hands. I know David Fee is going to be a part of it this year. And so it's just be, another great resource to give kids a higher level playing capability, around the country. So
awesome. How does that guy stay married? I gotta ask his wife.
Because he's never around. That's why.
I don't know.
She's chilling at the house. She's by the pool. She's reading a book. And Dave's just off doing rugby, man. It's the perfect marriage for those two individuals. That's what
he juggles. He juggles a lot of balls very, very well.
Shout out to Diane.
Hats off to him.
Fee juggles a lot of balls. Anyway, my around the pitch topic. In April 2026, this past April, Quinnipiac University announced it's transitioning its highly successful 3-time national champion Division I women's rugby program to club status. In response, current players from 2025 and incoming players for the 2026 season have filed a federal class action lawsuit alleging Title IX violations and retaliation. But this past today's Monday. This past last week, there we go. I don't know why I said that so weird. The judge denied their immediate request for an injunction to reinstate varsity play. Apparently, according to the lawsuit, it alleges that there was discrimination and retribution against the program because the coach had repeatedly raised concerns about the school's unequal treatment of male and female athletes. Quinnipiac is among 13 Division I women's varsity teams in the 2025 season. Most of them are over here in the Northeast. Named as plaintiffs are the 16 players who are on this 2025 roster and the 7 who plan to enroll as freshmen and play on this team in the fall. Think about that. You're going to enroll, you're going to commit to a team to play Division I rugby, and the program just gets cut. Kind of crazy. It alleges that rugby and other women's teams do not receive the same support as men's teams in areas such as facilities, equipment, travel, medical services, strength and conditioning, among others. And Coach Becky Carlson repeatedly raised concerns about unequal treatment to the administration, and the administration did nothing. So we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, the world famous Alona Marr, that's Quinnipiac's her team. So she's been very vocal about it. There's a lot of social media talk about it. Wendy Young, your Scrum Half Connection, has been giving us updates on all of her social media and everything she's talking about. It's one of those things where if it's documented, it's damning for Quinnipiac University, but we're going to kind of follow up on that as it goes along. Going into our actual rant, we're going to be talking about the summer series. It's the international window. It's all the fun stuff we get to talk about. Now we have a new guy that can hear all of our bullshit. But before he does that, we're going to hit you with a message from our sponsors. And like we said, we're going to be talking about the summer window here, the international window. We had 2 matches, men's and women's so far. We have matches coming up this current weekend. Man, I got to say, the past 2 weeks of rugby on Saturday has been just,
unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's morning, noon, and night. It's great if you can watch the fucking game, which we'll discuss probably right now, Rob. I mean, what's going on with the women here? I mean, how is this possible that we fuck this up?
Well, I think the frustrating thing for me is with so much attention paid to the issue of equality and maintaining equality, especially within organizations, and certainly USA Rugby's had to deal with its own issues in conjunction with the LGBTQ community, just in terms of transgender and how they're going to handle transgender players. At the very least, when you don't get these things right, it gives the appearance that things are unequal, even if that's not the intent. So the look is just bad. And even if it's not USA Rugby's fault, and I'm sure it isn't, because they don't produce the games, and they certainly don't have the platform for games, but it just reflects poorly upon them. And that's unfortunate, especially as we get closer and closer to 2031 and 2033.
Nick,
I think especially too after the performance that the women put on at the Olympics, how much buzz that created. If there's anything in terms of, what the rugby community wants to watch right now, it might be more the women than the men at times. And so the fact that was lacking, obviously unfortunate. I think Robbie hit that on the head. It's a bad look for USA Rugby, even though it's probably not USA Rugby's fault at all. But just unfortunate. I mean, the biggest, in my opinion, kind of downfall that we have as American fans is not being able to watch enough high-level rugby. The stuff we do have access to watch it is usually, middle of the night, early morning. So the fact that that was not able to watch for all the young women rugby players around the country, I'm sure was a huge bummer.
And it's funny because Alona Mar has been in the social media and in the news because this coincided with the Sports Illustrated swimsuit runway walk that she was doing. So she was all over social media, bringing rugby back into spaces that rugby doesn't find normally for Americans in Sports Illustrated, in this modeling area. Rugby doesn't find itself there in America versus maybe in Europe where you have players who are on some of those contracts. So you had buzz outside of the rugby zeitgeist to say, hey, the women are playing. Alona Mar's all over the place on social media, and then nobody could physically watch it. The first match, the Eagles on the 4th lose 21-34 against the Box. First match, what was the last time they played? It's been a while to get together to play. I always feel like it always feels like we're underprepared, but I also feel like we're not necessarily underprepared as much as we just don't have enough time to prepare. You know what I mean? We're always fighting against windows. Yeah, the training windows just don't line up well. Before, I also want to make mention, and I'm going to throw shade at USA Rugby here, and I just think we need to do better. USA Rugby needs to do better. So I've talked to Bill Gorn before. We need to do better. And so we can't control the production. We can't control the broadcast. But what we can control is having access to the stats, right? And so you can find all the stats from the men's game, and we'll talk about some of those statistics from the last 2 weekends. But there's a page for the stats for the women, but there's no stats present. That USA Rugby, it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, somebody please correct me, send us a comment if so, but that we can control. That USA can control, and that for me, that's a double whammy. I mean, so can we really control it though? Because right now, when you look at the MLR, the person who has the most up-to-date stats is our boy James Dealey, North American Rugby Database, hashtag MLR Stats, to the point that he has to correct them in just about every time them or a club does a stat. And then what happens is James then puts out a stat on his social media, and the teams then steal it and don't give him the credit. So let's be honest. if that's what they're doing for the professional MLR business, do you think the non-profit USA Rugby is not going to be doing the same thing? And that's just a little bit of a dig, but it's the truth. And that is one thing we should be able to do. How the fuck are we not putting stats on the goddamn website? Or we keep saying we're the number one growing sport in America, especially in the women's segment. How are we striking out? It's like anytime you go into a tackle, you're getting a fucking yellow card at this point because you're just doing it wrong from your base to not having the right height to not wrapping up. USA Rugby is failing on all levels in this.
It's been an issue for a long time. I mean, I think I could Google myself right now, and the stats that come off of my career are completely wrong. Amount of games played wrong. So it's one of those where, I think it's just very, very tough with the amount of resources we have, with the amount of money we have. You can only spend it so many ways. And unfortunately right now, the stats are probably very low on that totem pole.
Throw James Dealey a T-shirt. He'll take care of business.
Well, I'm just saying you have a bunch of people. Well, let me go on a little rant real quick. You have a bunch of people who would probably like to do it and don't know about rugby, but could probably do it because they're good with stats. They always did the book for baseball. They always did the book for their basketball team, whatever it may be. They ran the clock for their hockey team. Get a friggin' intern, send them to South Africa, and make them do the stats. I mean, pay for their accommodation, and then that's all you have to do. It's not that much to get that done to just look that much more professional. Anyway, but we end up winning the second match 26-19. Sorry, I just wanted to kind of get through it. Nick has a hard stop here, and we got so much to talk about.
Yeah.
So at least we're getting the final scores, but we're getting nothing else. When you click the match center on the website, it is blank. There is nothing there.
Right. So I'm going to add a couple things. And first of all, is that what amazes me, and I'm going to speak to the women's Springboks real quick. If you go back 5 years, the women's Springboks were walking mats for the rest of the women's World Rugby. What's amazing is that they're in the top 10 now. They broke into the top 10. And to think about their trajectory of how quickly they've done that. Why? Because there's a national effort to make things better, to improve the team. And it shows you what can be done when you're laser focused on a goal and how to achieve it. And you get everybody pulling on those oars at the same time in the same direction. That's what can happen. And that's the power of alignment. Unfortunately, I just think, we have some things working against us, geography being the biggest. But that being said, the USA women's did not have a good showing the first game. I think the first half they were outscored 29-0. They came out in the second. Right, the second half, and it was 22-5 in favor in that second half in favor of the women's Eagles. So, it took them a little bit of time to get, tuned up and ready. And I think, Scott, you spoke to that. But the second match, I thought they really played well. Their forwards were gritty. They scored 2 forward tries, 2 back tries. There was a brilliant try, and I want to make sure Uatafe scored that 50-meter try with a little inside-outside shimmy and made that break. Beautiful stuff. And then great defense there in the last 10 minutes to keep the Boks from tying the match up at any time.
There was pressure, man. I was surprised that not that I think our defense isn't that good, but sometimes when you get in that situation, all of a sudden those penalties start to accumulate. All of a sudden you get that yellow card and it starts to fall apart there. And the discipline was on point.
I think it was great to see the second game bounce back. I think one thing that is always understated from a fan perspective to a player perspective is the travel from the U.S. to South Africa is not easy. I don't know how long they were there in camp. I would assume only a couple days. So with jet lag, with new environment, with travel, with coming together with a new team, a lot of the players are playing together in WER now.
Young players too, Nick.
A lot of young players. It's not an easy thing to go and win that game. So first half, a little bit of a kick in the mouth, but the fact that they fought back in the second half and then showed up and put together a really good performance in that second game, I think is awesome for them. It's awesome to those players to, again, that's not easy. That's in any sport. You look at, NFL, NBA, the teams going from East Coast to West Coast and the stats. Travel is not an easy thing to do. And obviously that is a pretty long travel. So I think it's awesome how they bounce back.
By the way, real quick, the lineup isn't even in the match center. The one thing we actually control.
Right. Well, and I want to speak to the lineup. First of all, Kate Zachary, I think in that first test got her 50th cap. So kudos to Captain Kate. She is an absolute hero for all rugby women, all women that are in sport. Congratulations to her. And again, shout out to Ashley Cowdery, got her first 15s cap and scored in that match.
Nice.
And then followed up with the second cap in the 15 shirt. So congratulations to them. I know her parents, Carrie and Jeff, were in South Africa to watch and to show, she might have played wing in that first game. Anyway, but to have that experience as a parent, it's amazing. So congratulations to them. But it was good to see. And by the way, the women, not for nothing, are going to be playing again against Italy on October 17th and again on October 24th. And the one on the 24th is actually in Nashville. It's a doubleheader with the men. So if you're anywhere in the Midwest, you can get down to Nashville for that one on the 24th of October. It should be a great day of rugby with the men and women doubling up.
100%.
Yep.
I think Italy is just a couple spots above them in kind of the overall world rankings. So obviously them making the travel here puts a little bit of that favor in our hands. So that should be a great game.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the men's. July 4th, USA, Portugal. USA wins 30-29 in a tough contest. I mean, it's like, believe it or not, the Eagles reminded me of Chicago in this match. The only reason being they scored all their tries in the first half. And then Chicago was doing that all season, the MLR, where they were getting 7 tries in the first half. Luckily for us, those penalty goals really helped us out in the second half. Hilsenbeck just, nailing stuff from everywhere, thank God, to steal one away from Portugal. What do you guys think about it?
Rob, we talked about it a little bit over the weekend. I was at the game. Obviously, I live in Denver. I was a little bit bummed with the performance overall. And again, I want to state there is factors here. These guys are in camp for a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. A lot of these players are just finishing a season, but at the same time, that's what every player at the international level is doing right now.
Exactly.
Prem just ended, URC just ended, Super Rugby just ended, and all those guys are off playing with their international teams. So not an excuse at all. But I think the U.S. looked a little bit sloppy. We saw some uncharacteristic mistakes from some guys. And I talked to Rob, 2 red cards, especially when it's your 10 and your 15, the 2 playmakers that most teams don't have 2 guys sitting on the bench to replace the production of those 2 positions. And I feel like they just didn't take advantage of that enough and kind of, put a foot down when a team was on the brink. And obviously they scrap out a late win, but I think it was a game that most people watching, I think, thought Portugal probably deserved to win, considering they were kind of underpumped for the entire game.
Well, and I think we know that Portugal's strength is their kicking game, right? I think that's where they hurt us throughout the game. I think we saw Mitch Wilson really had a bit of a shocker. 2 of the tries that Portugal scored, I think, can be chalked up to positional mistakes by Mitch. He's, he can really put on a great game at the 11 shirt, but I'm not sure he's a 15. I just don't, especially against a team like Portugal, who kicks the ball really well. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I seem to recall Ruben's box kicks usually is really solid. At the box kick, they were a little shallow. Traditionally, the United States has had, as I've watched over the last couple of games, have had some difficulty with their kick chase. They don't create and put on enough pressure to really force either a mistake or force a decision, a hasty decision by the opposition, by the back 3. This one, the kicks were a little shallow, and yes, they were contestable, but there wasn't really any territory gained, so they have to work on that part of their game as they continue throughout their campaign from the summer and into the fall. I thought the forwards played well. They won the Maul game 7-2, line outs, little hit or miss, but not bad. And the scrums were pretty good. I'm going to go back to penalties, Nick. You mentioned the red cards, but I'm going to also mention total penalties for the United States, 4, total penalties for Portugal, 13. We should, when we have a penalty count that is that significantly to our advantage, we should be winning by more than 1.
100%, especially when I just talked about it. Portugal had to come here. They're at a major altitude playing in Denver on 4th of July weekend. They have everything in USA's favor for that match. So considering with the cards, the penalties, and kind of everything else, that's one that, I think the guys in the locker room would even say, you're happy about getting a win, not necessarily happy about the performance and kind of how you start off that summer test series.
It goes, I've been saying something now for a couple seasons, and Rob can attest to this. I feel like sometimes we have a game plan that fits into the opposition's strength when we have the ability to do something different with the players we have sometimes. And I understand what Scott Lawrence wants to do with the kicking game, and he wants that more Northern Hemisphere type of game. But if we know Portugal's that good at it, right? Why not keep the ball in hand a little more? Why not play to the strength of the American athlete that we know what they can do with the ball in hand? And I'm not saying just let go of all your principles all the time, but on a game like this, where they're coming to us, we have every advantage. We need to figure out a way to put the hammer down and not just say, okay, we're going to do the same game plan that, when we play a team like England or Scotland, they kick our butt. We have the same game plan. They kick our butt. They know how to do that game plan better than us. These types of games are where we're going to gain the points to then move up in the rankings and give us a little more juice. These are the games that we have to win by a point margin to put us where we need to be, to get that flowing, because everything I'm hearing from fans is we don't have the ball in hand enough. We don't have the ball in hand enough. We're just kicking away possession. And if the kick chase is ineffective, then that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think especially too, you look at some of the players in terms of like Mayo, who I think has done well coming on, making his debut, not a big wing. Mitch at 15, not a big 15. So if we're going to play the high ball game and we're sending guys that are, 5'9", 5'10" down the field to chase them, it's tough. It's a tough ball game to win. And I'm a big believer from when I was playing and now coaching. The best coaches, in my opinion, are guys that say, what do we have? What does our lineup look like? We're going to play to our strengths and not we're going to have an identity that's us. But it's like sometimes your roster doesn't match that. And, South Africa can have an identity when they have 100 players that can fit that identity.
Right.
When we're the U.S. rugby for a while is going to be a group where there's constant new players, there's constant new identity, and we need to say, what does today's 23 look like? What are we best at, and how can we go do that? And I think that sometimes lacks a little bit, and I think obviously fans will always harp on that, but but again,
also
it's easier said than done.
Real quick, Rob, if you look at the centers in Lepetti and Basag, like those guys run straight. If you give them the ball, they will run through people, right? And I feel like sometimes I don't know if we ignore it as much as, again, we say this would be a strength against Portugal. This is what we could use to neutralize their kick chase. Get the balls to a center, a wing's going to get the ball to a center who has a 5-meter head start on a pass, receiving a pass to run straight through a guy. And guess what? That fullback's going to have to make a tackle. If he has to make 50 tackles, how good are his legs going to be later in the match when he's kicking? Not so good. Maybe he's making a mistake. Maybe the ball's coming off the side of his foot. Maybe he's kicking shallow now when earlier in the match he was kicking deeper. Those are the things that can work to our advantage. And again, Scott Lawrence has told me I'm wrong, but I just feel, it can't be a coincidence that this match was so close because we decided this is what the game plan was going to be. And we never understand that we have to change it sometimes.
Well, I want to hit on two things before we move on to the next game, and perhaps one of my comments will be a transition for that. But, Nick, you hit up on the performance. Yes, there is a tournament kind of going on within this summer test series window, right? The Nations Cup, there is this tournament going on. You want to perform in that, no doubt. On the same token, too, I think we have to look at the bigger picture and use the telescope and say, what's the bigger game plan? What's the bigger objective? Of course, that is 2027 and on to 2031. So we have to look at, I think more importantly is what's our performance. You can have a good performance and lose, right? And I'm okay with that. Right? If you come away with some learnings and you have a good performance and you have some things that you've been working on that really show out, but you still lose a game by a couple points, I can live with that. I think it's a little harder to swallow, a little bit harder to swallow perhaps, is when you have a subpar performance, you only win by one and it's like, I didn't feel great about that win. Having said that, I think in game 2 was much more reflective of what I was looking for. And I also think Scott put a lineup in there that suited our strengths. You look at some of the changes that were made in the lineup, and I think they played a little bit more to the type of game plan that we want to have and played a little bit more to the strengths of the lineup. And I'll go back to your point, Scott, with Mooneyham. Bringing Mooneyham in, he's a bit more size. He's really good under the high ball. He's super explosive. And so, bringing somebody like him in against a physical team like Zimbabwe made a bit more sense, along with some of the other additions, like some of the back row changes. I'm thinking of Ben Benasso, not a physical number 8, but then you bring in Alec Khan, who's a much more physical player. That's one of the changes I was talking about. I think that speaks to your point, Scott.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought the forward play was a little better, but also, forwards are going to be a little sluggish. You got Zach Isacaro coming from France and the MLR. A lot of guys fought hard in the MLR, so I could see, specifically up front, it's going to be tough against that game against Portugal. I think they played better against Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe, awesome fucking crest with the Sables. I got to get some of their merch. But if you look at some of the stats, oh God, I just had it up and I lost it. I think the US only had 94 passes and 90 carries, but had almost 30 more meters gained from those carries. Defenders beaten just about the same. So I mean, it seems to me they were doing what I had said before they should have done against Portugal. A little bit less passing, a little bit more just running straight and kind of wearing them down. I think that could be effective against teams that are more in our tier 2 area to play better and win. I mean, the kicking game was a little bit better. Discipline was discipline. We had the yellow card. Penalties conceded were the same. I think if you look at penalty conceded in your own half, out of our 10 penalties, we only conceded 3 in our own half. So our defensive line was copped out and good. I think it was a solid game.
I was kind of one thing I noticed in both games that I've been a little surprised with, and sometimes I think we almost hold ourselves back a little bit, is I think we, you look at a team like Chicago and the season that they just had. The Chicago's back line is a lot of this U.S. current back line. So obviously, Ollie Devoto, you take him out, we're subbing in an American 12. But other than that, it's an entire American back line, and Brock Webster at 15. The way that they moved the ball and stretched things sideline to sideline put it so much pressure on teams game after game after game. And then we look to these first 2 U.S. games, the amount of possessions we had that phase after phase after phase was one pass into contact, one pass into contact, one pass into contact. I was shocked at, I feel like sometimes we get these guys together and it's like we only have a week. We're going to make things so simple. But we forget, these are all good players. Let them play. Let them make a mistake or two. And if you need to, at halftime, say, hey, let's condense. Let's play within our game. That's fine. But, one-pass rugby doesn't win much anymore these days. It's very old-school mentality. And I think we have the players to play beyond that now. It's not, hey, we got a bunch of guys that don't play professional rugby and are getting together off of, a couple club games. These guys are good. We have guys playing in the MLR. We have guys playing overseas in some pretty good leagues. Let them play. Let them experience things. And especially against a team like Zimbabwe that you should beat, you should have the edge in most phases of the game, expand it a bit. But I thought, you look at that game, we basically get gifted the first try with the fumbled, opening kickoff that we get down to 5 meters out. The next try is basically a gift again with the backward box kick that we then turn into transition long try. And then we go about 40 minutes of no offense, no real major threat. And it's one of those where I think we have the players. I think the guys have the skill. Put the confidence in them and let them go do it.
I mean, how many times are we going to throw that pass to that flat-footed forward that's 5 meters away from the breakdown? Yeah. And again, I'm not saying these guys are not athletic, but any forward just standing there waiting for the ball, the forward momentum isn't going to be there for somebody to come in and make a good tackle. If you're going to do something old school like that, just do a pick and go, because at least their momentum is going to go forward. They're going to fall a couple meters forward, and then maybe brings in the defense a little bit. But I think you're right. I think they're kind of trying to simplify it because they don't have enough time to prepare. But we're at the point now where they're professional enough to do some more complicated things.
Well, and you think about it, your 9-10 combination along with one of your centers are all played in Chicago, right? Yeah. So if you look at the international game right now, what you're seeing is a lot of looping by your 9 and your 10 to the, to outside or in between your centers or outside the last center to create those odd man breaks and force a defense to make some decisions. And you've got, Ruben De Haas is a fabulous player in support. Chris Hilsenbeck makes really good decisions when given an opportunity to see space and given, a bit of time to make decisions. Let them do that. I agree, Nick. Experiment a little bit, especially against a team like Zimbabwe, which you can match up physically, and that's one of the parts of that game that I think they did really well. Is they matched up well with the physicality part of the game against Zimbabwe. So why not build off of that and really play a more expansive game? That being said, Perry Mayo. How about that fabulous freaking try, right? Uses physicality to fend off the defender, then uses speed and acceleration to score the try. Amazing work.
It's almost like he held the ball in possession and scored a try. Can you believe that?
Well, and it's a turnover ball, it's transition, but if we don't swing it wide to him in the first place, we don't have those opportunities. And it's like, if we're going to say America's the country that maybe has the athletic advantage, but not the rugby pedigree, then we got to let our athletes be athletes. If our wings are touching the ball 4 or 5 times a game, we're in trouble there. We gotta, and like I said, I think the players fully have it in them. I think the guys are well skilled enough now. The modern game, and we're seeing it all across, whether it's Nations Cup, Nations Championship, whatever, points are being scored at the highest rate we've seen at the international level in a lot of years. There's way more 45-35 games than we're used to seeing 4, 5, 6 years ago. That's for a reason. Everybody's playing expansive. Everybody's putting so much pressure under defenses. And yes, maybe you make a mistake or two and you're going to give up some points. But if we're not playing with that expansive free throw, let the players be creative, mentality, and we're going to keep it simple rugby skills, unfortunately, against any top tier nation, we're going to lose that battle. And I'd way rather lose a game 75-35 and say, hey, we put them under pressure. We tried, but they're better than us, as opposed to 70-10, where we're kicking away possession every second phase, playing one pass rugby. And it's just like, I don't think that's growing or expanding our player portfolio. I think the guys have it in them.
As we wind down the discussion, I got to ask Nick this question as a coach, as a former MLR player, playing on several different teams. Alakan, gifted player, physical, can make tackles, but do we ever need to be concerned about, his penchant for drawing penalties? The MLR, he played 8 games. He had 2 yellows and a red card. So he was getting carded in just under a third of the games in the MLR. He draws another yellow in this game for silly stuff. Not even like a high tackle, shoulders slipped up. It's just being undisciplined.
That first one was a bit silly. There wasn't really any need there. It's hard to say because as a player, and obviously, Rob, you know this firsthand, in the heat of the game, sometimes things happen. Sometimes things get away from you. Obviously, discipline is a major factor, and especially, for a team like the U.S., we're going to only beat teams when we're playing at our strength and our very best. Yeah. So if we're in games where we're, a yellow card or 2, playing a man down for, a quarter of the game, we're not beating many teams, and especially any top tier team. So there is a point to that, but I very much do think that's something that can be coached, that can be trained, that you can talk to that player. I think he brings enough physical skills to the game that you don't want a guy like that off the field, but it's got to be reeled in a bit. And whether that's from a coach, whether that's from your 9-10 leaders there, whether that's from Jason Dom.
I mean, it's similar to Jamison Fana Schultz, where he had a couple games where he was consistently getting carded and had these penalties, and then that stopped, and he matured a little bit, and he got talked to, and he played well. So we got 2 minutes left. My question to you guys is: we have Spain coming up. I can
go a little bit longer. We're okay. Good for another 5.
All right, cool.
All right.
Well, nice. So we have Spain coming up. My question to you guys is: okay, we squeaked by Portugal, and you can chalk that up to whatever. We put a good showing in Zimbabwe. Should Ethan McVeigh start at 9 against Spain?
No, because you have the First Nations Cup at this tier 2 level. You've won 2 games. I think there's something to play for. There's a feather to put into your cap in Moonshot, right? To say, hey, we achieved something. We have a lot of matches coming up. There are opportunities to get him more time. But at this point, you want to beat Spain. You want to really, I mean, how many times can we say in a summer tour that we've gone 3-0?
Not many. And I think you look at the rest of the, Cup series, they still have Georgia to play. That's going to be a very tough game. So yeah, I think again, we're trying to progress and build, but at the same time, I don't think we're at a point yet where playing time is a factor. I think right now you put your best guys out there when they're healthy. That's how you treat it. I think that's how all the top teams treat it. And yeah, I mean, we're trying to win games. We're trying to grow. We're trying to put on performances that, fans can be proud of, that USA Rugby can be proud of, that the coaching staff walks away with confident, feeling good about what they're putting in. And so, yeah, that's zero knock at all to Ethan. It's more of a, the coaches are going to decide who they think is playing the best. And I think you go with whoever that man is, whether it's him or whether it's Ruben. But I don't think we're at a stage where we can sacrifice growth from our top players to kind of spread the wealth out. I think that's something that, only the nations that have a wealth of top talent can kind of afford to do.
I disagree in the fact that what happens if we do have a catastrophe and we're going into 2027 with Ethan and he didn't get enough minutes that he needed to get, and I feel like if we're going to pick and choose sometimes what we're doing and go through this thing, well, we can't always put it on Ruben to be the guy all the time. Right. And if we're choosing to kick that way and Ethan's the backup for that, I feel like he just needs to have a couple more minutes, especially going into this World Cup, because, if something catastrophic happens in the fall, what are we going to do? Our gap in our starters and some of our backups in certain positions is way larger than South Africa and England and New Zealand. So how do you fix that? More meaningful minutes.
It is the only kind of counter I would have to that. And this is coming from a lot of personal experience of being a guy that was a backup for a lot of years, played behind some very good wings, especially early in my career. I'm a big believer that at this level, you are all professionals. It shouldn't take you getting minutes on the field to get better at your craft. If you're not getting the minutes that you want to see, that's something you got to work on your own. You got to show the coaches that you deserve those minutes. And you also got to watch who's around you, watch who's in front of you. Ruben's played some very, very high level, with Saracens, before that when he was in South Africa. He's a guy that you can learn a lot from. And so, if I'm a guy sitting behind him, I'm picking every piece I can from him. I'm watching his game film. I'm seeing where he played well, where he didn't play well. And I'm, every single week when practice is done, last guy on the field working on my craft and basically, put my hand up for when it comes, I will be ready. But I don't need to get minutes to get ready. That's something as a professional, you got to figure out how to do on your own.
I'm going to add this too. We probably had the most packed calendar for our U.S. men's Eagles that we've had in Eagle history this year. right? So we're coming off 2 games, Portugal, Zimbabwe. We have Spain, of course, coming up this weekend. But then August 14th, we have Argentina 15, a friendly. Can we get Ethan McVay some more time there, knowing that it really is not, I don't even know if that's an actual test match because it's not the Jaguares, right? So can he get a lion's share of game time there? Then we're playing Japan. You want to put your best effort out there. And then, we could play Fiji or Canada in the Pacific Nations Cup final. Probably want to put our best effort out, best 15 out there. But then the 24th, Australia 15, again, it doesn't mean much. And then again, the next week, Australia 15, again, no major implications for other things. Another opportunity to get McVay some more time. Then you have Georgia, as Nick mentioned, and Romania, and then Hong Kong, China. Another opportunity where you might be able to get him some minutes. So there are plenty of opportunities to get him minutes. I just don't know that this is the game where you make that sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, I think too, as we all know, it's a physical game. The chances Ruben stays fully healthy for that entire window is very slim. I'm not saying it's going to be any big injury, but there's knocks all the time. This very easily, Ethan could find himself into a lot of games where he's playing very meaningful minutes. And it's, again, in my opinion, when you're at this level, when you're a professional, just like we would do in our everyday working careers, you want to get that next promotion. You don't wait on the guy in front of you to get hurt. You say, hey, I'm going to make my numbers the best they can be, and I'm going to hit all my goals and have great customer satisfaction and put my hand up. And I think, obviously Ethan's a professional. He's had a great season. And I think, when his time comes, he'll be ready. And, like I said, you pick every bit of info you can from the players around you, including the teams you're playing. And you learn, you keep growing, you keep improving, and he'll be good to go when his time comes.
All right. I mean, I think we picked apart the international window.
The question is, did we convince you, Scott?
No, you did not. You did not.
Of course
and the
not.
reason I say that is because if you compare Ruben, right, and you talk about the experience that he had playing meaningful minutes at a higher level, is why he has that experience and how he has those skills. And I think it is a little bit different when you're talking about internationals versus the NFL week in, week out, 17 games plus the playoffs, plus you're going, really 11 on 11 every day against the top tier all the time, right? For us, where we're at with our status as tier 2, sometimes I don't think we get as much meaningful minutes as in practice as we do in games. And I think we need to start looking a little bit at the future. And I'm not saying, Ethan's going to be our 9 for 2031. I'm just saying after 2027, what's that rotation start to look like? Ruben's a little older. What's that transition start to look like? It's the game against Spain where do we need to win it? Not necessarily, but
I think for this group though, when you're playing in the Nations Cup and it's all tier 2 teams that are right on par with you, a massive part of our building blocks is we need to beat these teams every time we play them convincingly if we're ever going to think about being ready to compete against tier 1 teams and hold up our own. So you can't throw away a game and possibly lose. Yeah, and possibly lose. And then the guys lack confidence. Then your coaching staff's questioning things going on. It's just, it's the international level. You win every game you can. You put up as many points as you can. And, again, guys will have opportunities. They'll have chances to grow. It's hard. It's tough. It's not an easy recipe. But again, I think in my career, I probably learned more and grew from sitting behind the, Harley Davidson, Mika Kruse, John Ryberg, guys that were year in, year out, like leading the MLR and tries scored. And, you bring in people like Rennie Ranger and guys like that. And especially down in Austin when it's like, Isaac Ross and you have figures of that nature that you're around, watching how they performed, watching how they studied film, the things that they looked at, what they did on the practice field. I probably grew way more from that than I did getting some minutes where, maybe it's a lesser team, or, it was 5-10 minutes at the end of the game that you come in and the game's over before you even get your feet wet. Like, 10-15 minutes at the end of a game is not going to mean anything to Ethan's development as a player, as opposed to everything he can be doing off the field, in my opinion, that I'm sure he is. And like I said, I think he'll be ready to rock when his time comes.
All right, guys. So yep.
Real quick, Nick, for fans that are leading their clubs, coaches that are leading high school or youth programs, where can they find you if they're interested in talking about a tour? Yeah, so Inspire Sport Global is the company. Our headquarters globally is in Manchester, but our U.S. office is in Atlanta. I'm based in Denver. That's kind of the nice thing about our touring business is our entire sales side to customer service side is all in the U.S. You can contact us whenever. So for me, email is nick.johnson@inspiresportglobal.com. Obviously, you can find us on the website. You can find me through social media, anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's to me, touring in rugby, as you said, there's a special culture in the game of rugby that we don't see from any other American sport. I think that's cut and dry between the respect of the players, the respect to the ref, the post-game kind of social atmosphere, the community atmosphere. Like, it's all very unique. It's all very special. It's all something that, in my opinion, it goes way beyond rugby in terms of if every human being in this country had the same moral code and moral standards that rugby players do within the game and within the culture to be able to beat the hell out of a person for 80 minutes and then share a meal with them, share a beer with them, talk about your families, put everything, our differences aside. If that was in the everyday culture of American people, the country would be a far better place to live in. And so I think it's just a special sport, and our kids can only truly see that when they go overseas and experience the game at the finest levels, where the clubs have been established for hundreds of years. Even at your youth games, there's a post-match social. You get together with the community, and it's just a special thing. And so, whether it's with me and Inspire Sport or anybody else, I think touring is something that these kids need to see. It's huge for their rugby growth. It's huge for their individual growth as a human being. And with a platform like we use, where it's not hey, your tour costs this much, we'll do 2 payments of however much. Everything we do is customized. It's personal to the individual. Every family that goes or player that goes has their own payment plan. We can spread it out over however many months. We help with fundraising. So I think it seems like a daunting task, but when you actually look at it and you talk to a person like myself, a lot of times these tours you can do, $200 a month. You spread it out over a year. You do some fundraising, and it's no longer a daunting thing, especially when we say, hey, every piece of the logistics is done. All you have to do is register your kid and get your team ready to go. But from flights to hotels to buses to meals to games to excursions to tour coordinator on the ground to the payment plans and the service staff, like, as a coach, you don't think about anything other than getting my team prepared to have an awesome experience and how can we build from it when we get back home. So it's a lot easier thing than I think a lot of coaches think. And there's never been a club I've worked with that's gone on a tour and hasn't come back a stronger club, a better team, better camaraderie within your group, your families. So it's just an experience that I don't think can really be matched.
Listen, I think me and Rob are both on that same line of thinking. And one of the things is it teaches a kid how to prepare when you are traveling. So when they go to, if they play for a competitive high school team, if they play for a competitive college team, they already have the knowledge, and it might not be the way the current team they're on does it, but a little bit of a knowledge of this is how travel works. This is what I need to prepare. This is what I need to do. Almost that professionalism starting early on just the way to prepare yourself to play rugby when you're traveling. But guys, we've hit an hour. It's been a great episode. Hopefully we'll have Nick on a couple more times. I thoroughly enjoyed his thoughts on the summer window and and everything we talked about. And episode 242, we're closing in on 250. Rob, can't believe it.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's a massive congrats to you guys. There's not enough people like yourselves that are putting in the time and the effort to grow the game and grow the media around the game and the exposure. So massive thank you and props to the both of you for what you guys do for the game. And couldn't thank you guys enough for having me on. Would love to do it again.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
Awesome.
I'm going to be at the doubleheader in New Jersey. So come say hi to me. I'm also trying to get down to Baltimore for Springboks and All Blacks, but I got to be honest right now, the last row tickets are still $250. And if I got to pay for that, plus my gas, plus an Airbnb, I don't think the big guy's going to be there. That's a tough one to sit. I mean, listen, you're talking about
have some cred someplace.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm waiting. You know how, and Rob knows, a month before the match, they start talking about credentialing guys. So it's a timing thing. So hopefully I'll be down there. But, I think what we need to know is these are tests for the World Cup. There's a reason they're playing where the Ravens play. And I got to be honest, I think the Soccer World Cup has shown that we can do this for the Rugby World Cup in 2031. But
Scott, you need some tickets for that. You let me know. It's the beauty of Inspire Sport. Pretty wide reach. We got an office in New Zealand. I think we might be able to get you something for that. So you let me know.
I'll reach out to you, Nick. That'd be awesome. But guys, I think this is done and dusted. I'm the big guy, Scott Farrar. That's Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt for our guest, Nick Johnson. This was episode 242, and we will see you next week.